G'day, my Patreon legends. How you going? Oh, I have a little bit of a blocked nose. No, it's not the corona. It's okay. But today I'm going to share with you guys an extensive breakdown of this short spot. Like I do always now, it's becoming a regular thing. I've gotten some feedback from you guys, Sean and also Joa, just wanting to see a little bit more content and what I can deliver with what I've got, and I'm going to do that. But first I'm going to share with you a little bit of excitement. Today I got some black and white film. I'm going to put in this little guy down here, the Zenit Soviet, made in the USSR camera. So I can't wait to take this one out and start taking some portrait shots. I will share with you guys a little bit more in depth later on what I'm going to do there. So I'll talk a little bit about the camera itself, why I'm shooting with such an old camera, made in 1983, and why I'm shooting with some black and white film. Why would I do that? Why would anyone do that? You got digital cameras. It's awesome. It's cheaper. Go into that more in depth later. But what we'll do right now is we'll break down another advert. So if you watch the freebie, you can watch the freebie, but screw the freebie. You guys are paying for it. So I'm going to get into DaVinci Resolve and get right into the nitty gritty. Now, I'm going to let the advert play through, and yeah, we'll just have a little breakdown, talk about that afterwards. So here we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Cool. All right, so there seems to be a trend, at least here in Norway, for super short adverts, and I know that there is a trend online to get these adverts as boom, in your face, and then quick before you decide to go click exit. This advert was pretty simple to produce, as you can see here. Excuse me, that the advert is quite simple in its approach, really. So again, the budget on this one was not extravagant, so it was just literally me, camera, and then out shooting. This first scene, because of the nature of the beast, I had to shoot, well, I chose to shoot inside of the establishment, the De Gulehus, and this is the name of the company. It's here in the local area in Norway. And I shot on one of their shelves, and they're like a second-hand, as I say, brukt boutique. But basically what they do is they sell other people's stuff for them, but in a way that it's an open shop, and without selling it too much. You put your items on a shelf with a little sticker on it, and then people buy it, and then you get cash, and then you give a little bit of cash to the company and also pay for the rent of the place. So it's actually a pretty cool concept, and it's been a lot of fun working with these guys over the last, I guess, year now. Nils, the owner, is expanding, and it's really exciting to see that my work has started with him from the beginning, and hopefully when he expands I'll be able to get a bigger budget and to be able to do things. Anyway, regardless of the size of the budget, you should still really look at producing the best quality work available as possible within your skill. And the budget at the end of the day is kind of a bonus, because this is kind of like one, our bread and butter, but also our passion and love. Isn't that right? Okay. So let me walk through this. It's super simple. Pop, 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 pop. So all of these pops were recorded with this field mixer and a microphone. I just set that up in my room. I put some headphones on, plop, and I just went, and I recorded that. I did a few over and over. I just recorded that into the system, or actually on, let me go to full screen. I have one of these little recorders. I was able to plug that in with an XLR straight into the mixer without making any audio scariness. This little mixer here is a fantastic analog mixer. It is my bread and butter when it comes to audio. So I plug that into the microphone. I've got this boom microphone here. If I can bring it down a little bit, you can just see it a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to go too much just in case technical difficulties happen. Has happened before. Happened last week and it was doing my brain in, but I was able to fix that problem. So when doing these kind of things, some people love to go and just buy the sounds. Me, on the other side, I love the process, the creation of it. So I was able to set that up, and luckily I have the gear to be able to do that. But honestly, you can do it with anything. You can do it on your mobile phone. You can do it with whatever. I was sort of a bit overkill with getting these sounds. But that's just what I do, and that's my process within doing that. So when setting up the microphone, I made those sounds. Also, I brought in instruments. So if I go back to over to DaVinci Resolve, and I just let that one play through. So that little shake there was just a shaker instrument. So I don't actually have these instruments on me. And just to say that all the small things make sense along the way, especially when you start producing this kind of content, whether it's for short films, whether it's for advertising, whatever, just for any of your projects whatsoever. You've got to sort of think about sound as sound being like an asset to your film, and also to an asset to the emotion and the mood within this thing. Because of these sounds here, they're kind of like, jolly, happy, playful sounds. That kind of plays on that jolly happiness vibe going on there. And Joa, I know that you mentioned before that you wanted me to talk a little bit more about mood and setting and all this kind of stuff, as well as techniques and what, like everything kind of associated with it. So this is a little bit more in depth, particularly from your question on this one. My focus in building something like this. So I didn't initially have that in mind when I first started shooting this film, but I knew kind of what I wanted to achieve there. So when I got into post-production, I then saw, okay, well, I need to make these sounds to make it more dynamic in that sense. So when the logo comes up here, so when the logo comes up here, it goes boing. I did that with the Norwegians call it munnspill, but I don't really know what it is, a mouth thing. So it's literally a little metal thing. You place it on your teeth and you go boing. So that was that sound, that what came up there. Then the shaker, yes. And then when the logo goes out, you hear this meow. Essentially what I did was I got a harmonica and I played a few different notes to what I thought was right. It still didn't sound 100% what I wanted in this one because the logo was shrinking and disappearing. But this sound is progressive and it goes... so it feels like it's appearing. So what I did was I just reversed that sound in post and just put it in like that. And I think I modified the speed a little bit just to kind of fit the speed of the logo disappearing. So that this is pretty straightforward stuff. I first initially wanted to talk about the sounds. We can break down the video stuff in just a moment. And then, of course, this is the track that's in the end here is a royalty-free track, which was purchased online by my client, of course. And that's what was used for this one because it was happy, quick music, and then boom, job finished, happy days, paid, cool, next. I'm happy, he's happy, everyone's happy. So just going back to scene number one, and this now we're going to talk a little bit more in depth the breakdown of the video process because of the low budget and also the time constraints, and also because I was shooting here in opening hours of this shop. I had a very limited time frame to complete this one. I think it was maybe 30 minutes. Come in, set up, boom, film, and then out again. which is fine. I can deal with that. It's good pressure, and it's also lots of fun. I didn't have any time to set up lights, so everything is in-house lights. Unfortunately, if I had time, I would love to come and set my own lights up, but that's just the nature of the beast in this one. So yeah, here you can actually just see the house lights on there, and you know, you get these shadows and all this kind of stuff, and you start to see like some colors going on in here. That's because of the actual house lights being different colors. It's a terrible situation to be in. Generally, I like to bring my own lights in, but like I said, just wasn't possible here, so I made do. Color balanced it as best as possible. So if we have a look at the parades, it's probably a little bit more on the blue side here, but actually overall it's fine. Particularly have a look at the porcelain. We can go more into depth in color grading and stuff like that, but for this one, I wanted to produce it as quick as possible and as good as possible, and that's what we did here. So the direction was really that there's items on the shelf, and then they disappear one by one without showing people grabbing things. It was just too much to organize for this one, and it gets the message across super quick. Pop, 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 pop. And then all of a sudden, it comes up with a notification, let's say, and then she realizes here, okay, something's happened, and then sold. So that means sold. You can probably understand that. So all of the stuff has been sold from Degulahoos, and then all of a sudden, it's party time. Yay, dance, 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 happy music, and that's how easy it is. And this is the message that I wanted to get across, that it's super easy, that your stuff just disappears on the shelf without you having to do anything. You can be at home doing your own things, particularly whether it's study or working or whatever, or chilling. As you can see here, there's a cup of hot chocolate, so obviously she's enjoying herself. And just the sheer joy when she finds out that everything is sold, and she dances around. Yay! And she can be happy. There were going to be other scenes in this one, but I thought to myself that it was going to be a bit too long in the tooth. So, and particularly because of the short nature, we have 25 seconds with the logo. So we have, I think, literally, what is it? Yeah. Essentially, when it's done, it's 15 seconds long. So it's a super short advert. And it can be challenging, but it also can be super fun, especially if you're prepared and ready to go and you've got the people engaged and blah, blah, blah. So just running right across now, I want to talk a little bit more about the camera technicals, just because I know some of you are interested in it. I shot this on the Red Scarlet MX. This is the camera that I'm filming on over here. The camera doesn't do 5K normal video, but it does 5K kind of stills, so 12 frames a second. And that was perfect here because I was able to fit to the 5K format that I was shooting in. Particularly because in the other shots I was using the Red Epic, which is a 5K camera. Or I was shooting in 5K at least. So I wanted to match that resolution without having too much kind of noise going on and differentiation in the image quality. So the image quality here it's the same sensor essentially in the camera, in the Scarlet, as it is in the Epic. It's just different processing powers. So in the Epic, it's also sports the Mysterium X sensor. So I wanted to match that as best as possible in this situation. So here, now we've switched right over to the MX sensor. Let's have a look here. We're getting these lovely contrasts. Lovely natural light coming in. And now talking about this, not all of this is natural light. In fact, this is all set up. So this shot here is essentially a shot that it needs to be kind of taken care of. There's nice contrast going in here. We've got our props, we've got our computer, we've got this lovely kind of shadow, but because of this light up here, there's giving some detail in the background. We can see our notepad here, we can see the hand, we can see the shadow, we can see also the other light that's spilling on over here. We've got here a bit of contrast, which is good, so it's giving a little bit of mood to the picture. And you can see also that contrast on the cup here. And then this shot, I would say, is a shot that I always try and take the most care on, particularly because it's something that you're really kind of focusing on, because you're looking at it, particularly with the perspective that it's on, as it's on a 50mm. You kind of have to take care of what's going on in the shot here. As we move away from the 50mm, the close-up shot or over the shoulder shot with this one, we're into the wide shot. Now the wide shot is a 21mm, and we notice already that the difference in the contrast is a little bit more different. Now, technically speaking, this is kind of a difficult one to achieve when you have very little time to set up. Your talent comes in and then sits down, does a job, and then goes. This I tried to do my best to keep it as matching as possible here. So we've got a lot more contrast, a lot more interest going on here. And we noticed that when we go straight to our wide shot, we still got that light representing from the outside light here. And we get a little bit of idea of what's going on in the room here. So we still have this detail here, so this contrast going on here. We notice that there's a little bit of light on here, and that's actually coming from 2 Kino flow lights that I had set up. So I'm going to take a deep breath and not talk super duper fast, and I'm going to try and break this one down as best as possible and maybe a bit slower. I don't need to rush for this one. I needed to rush for the other video because it's a freebie, but this one I can take my time. Oh, okay. So I think I just got carried away and galloped into the future. So let me come back into the present. Here with this shot, I really love doing wide shots and then trying to make it as balanced possible. I will put it into the full screen mode so we can appreciate a little bit more. So what have we got going on here? We've got a practical light going on here. You may think that this is light bleed, but it's actually just snow on a table that's outside. So that's what it is. Or snow on the ground. Yes. Anyway, it's not actually a reflection of a light in the window, so don't get carried away and go, haha, Patrick, your technique sucks. No, so here we've got a practical light. Practical light means a light that you see that in shot, apart from reflections. We decided to put that lamp there because it's a cool little lamp. Added some homeliness. Here's my bonsai tree. Look at it growing. Loves the light. But talking from a technical point of view, here these shots are somewhat a little bit difficult to pull off sometimes. And what I mean by sometimes is the kind of nature of getting an exposure from outside and then a good exposure inside. Now we know that outside generally is more brighter than inside. However, when shooting a video, it's a good idea to try and help bring up those levels a lot more inside, so you can see what's going inside, so you can expose it on your camera sensor, but also have outside, because that's nice. This is not at all diffused or tinted or anything. I just stopped the lens down to, I think it was f5.6. Now I was using the Carl Zeiss 21mm f2.8. Dropped it down to f5.6 so we get a little bit of depth, particularly as we swing around here. This is great. We've got reflections of the lamps. You don't actually see them in picture, but there's some lamps up here giving a little bit of colour. I should have probably had them a little bit closer so you could see them, so that made more sense when you saw the reflection, but it's okay for what it is. But notice how we've got so much detail outside still, and then we've got a nice contrast, warm tone in the room here. So this for me is like also one of these bread and butter shots that I go, okay, well, I have to produce it. Even though the budget was small, I still wanted to, it's my work, you know. So I had to take care as much as possible when bringing up the levels in the room. Now you notice on the shoulder here, you don't actually see it in the room. You notice that this room is quite big. So actually in this room, so there's one, and over to the left of this window here is another big window, and this window here, and over to the right there is another big window. So you kind of can get away with going, okay, well, where's this light coming from? You know, you can kind of get away with saying, okay, well, there's light coming in from that window over there. Not that you know, and I haven't shown it in this shot because, well, there's not much time or like many scenes. In fact, there's only very few scenes to be able to do that establishing. And I just set up a light, a big Kino flow light in the back here. Let me just explain that one properly, and I'll go over to the behind the scenes photos, so you can actually see what the hell I'm talking about. So here, this is the Kino flow lights that I was talking about. These are tube lighting. They're not LED, so they're fluorescent tubes, and you can probably see here a slight difference in the color. That's because there is. I'm trying to balance that to the daylight, kind of not direct sunlight, because that would be 5500. Here it's overcast, so it's a little bit cooler or a little bit warmer. So I stuck in a couple of 32s in here just to make sure that was balancing out properly and didn't seem too extreme. So I wanted to have more of a neutral feeling to the video, so that's what I did there. So now you can see here, it makes more sense. I've got those lamps that was giving that warmth here. We never actually got that ukulele that's on the window, but we got the on the wall, but we got that one that's in the window there. So here's our scene. This is my lounge room, old country home. This is like built in the 1700s in Norway. Pretty cool. So this is how I did it to light the wide shot. So here we've got these foam core bounce boards to bounce that light and make it a bit softer. And instead of having the light direct on, that would have been a little bit too hard and a little bit like, okay, she's lit now. But here, if I go back over to DaVinci, you can see that it's a lot softer. The approach is a lot more subtle rather than having a direct light on there. And this was actually something that you and I were talking about, Joa, about diffusing light and bouncing light and trying different techniques. Well, here, mate, is a good example of that. Of trying to get this more naturalistic light into your scene to also light your subject and also bring up the general exposure in the room. Depending on the monitor you're looking at, you might get different results. I'm having a look on a 4K monitor here, which is my normal viewing experience, and then I'm looking at a reference monitor which is in Rec 709 or just kind of standard spec. So I can see the contrast difference. So in the screen that you're probably looking at it on, like whether it's a MacBook or some kind of Windows laptop, you might see that there are some sort of kind of darker spots at the bottom of the screen, and then the light spots seem to be, I don't know. I'm just trying to compare the reference. On my 4K monitor, I've got a whole lot more resolution, and I can see a lot more detail. So it's somewhat HDR-ish. And then I notice on my reference monitor that I have a lot more contrast, particularly in the room, and that's great. That for me works, and I hope that you guys also see that as well. That there is a lot in the room itself is lots of warm room tones, and outside is cold. Well, it's winter outside, so that's kind of obvious. So yeah, and if we have a look at our kind of histogram here, we notice on the parades we've got a lot of information here up and down. If we have a look on our histogram here, we see that we've got quite a lot of information. So in our sort of darker parts of the screen, so most of the stuff that's inside, there's quite a lot of level. And then on the outside with the highlights, there's not a whole lot of information, but we still got some good information there. So if we were to bring that up, we would lose that information completely. The same with that outside stuff. So if we're to bring that down, then we would lose that information. Bring that up, we are to get a lot more room. But that to me seems a little bit kind of not so believable. So here we could probably bring those levels up a bit like that, and that would be fine. But that's all about tweaking and then sending out the product at the end of the day. And again, like I was saying about having different monitors, they can, that can be a different experience for other people. It's very difficult, particularly with this kind of advertising, quick advertising, to try and see it on each and every one's monitor to make it as best as possible. You have to kind of take the executive role and go, okay, looking at the levels on the screen, nothing is in super blacks and nothing is in super duper brights. Everything is kind of within that histogram and parade. Then you're pretty good to go. I think the only differences you would get is if you were looking more on a blue screen opposed to a warm screen. Anyway, a lot of people don't notice that, but it's something for someone like us to keep in mind when producing this work. What I'm going to do now is I am going to take a short break to get a glass of water and also change the batteries in my mixer. And yeah, I'll come straight back after the logo. Hola, hola, hola. Okay, I'm back. I was really dry before. Talking a lot really exercises the throat and I don't know. Okay, I'm going to get straight back into it and talk a little bit more about mood and technique of creating mood within a picture. I know that's a request from Joa, particularly because he is starting to do some filming, which is awesome, and I think it's great. So I want to delve a little bit deeper into that one. So I'm going to jump over to DaVinci. Hello, DaVinci. So I'm going to talk about a scene that I like to take most care in. Excuse my throat. I don't know what the dryness is today. I'm going to go to full screen and talk a little bit more about the elements in here. So the elements we've got on the table, we've got a little plant, we've got a cup with hot chocolate in there, we've got a pad, we've got a pencil, we've got Ranita here, we've got a laptop. Quite a few elements to cram into a little screen here, but I wanted to give that homely feel, that homely representation, that you understand that you're sitting on your table at home and you're doing something, and you've got your laptop open waiting for something to happen, or you've just listening to music potentially, maybe not in this case, but also to show off that okay, we're in a place where it's comfortable. So this was the intention, and I wanted to try and bring a little bit more contrast into the picture. So when we jump to the wide of the picture, we see a lot more of the room, and that can be sometimes kind of tricky to keep in terms of the mood the same as the close-up shot in the wide shot, particularly if you don't have a whole lot of time to set up lights and do all this kind of stuff. It's best to set up the scene beforehand for the wide shot, and then go in and block or put some negative fill in there, or bounce or whatever, just to enhance your shot here. So the light that's falling on the hand here and a little bit on the table and the laptop, which is filling in the laptop here with light, apart from the actual light of the laptop screen, we have some overall level that's coming in to this space here, and particularly on the cup, that is actually light that's coming in from one of those Kino flow lights that I showed you within the behind the scenes shots here. So as she's sitting here, and pushing level and light from this bounce light here and also from here. But actually what I did with this shot was, instead of having this bounced, I just turned that board over and used it as a neg. So I've got an example here. This is just styrofoam. I put a bit of tape just so it can kind of last a little bit longer, so it doesn't get all flaky. But I've spray painted one side with kind of a matte paint, just to give neg. And then I've got the other side and I left it white so we can get a nice feel, as you can see here. So take that away, got that blue coming on, do it as best as possible. We got some nice dramatic neg, but then also we can fill me in with some light and bounce on. So I'll put that one back here because that's helping block my blue light off my eyeball from down the corner there. And this is something that's super cheap to purchase from any department store or hardware store or whatever. So I just put one of those foam core sheets just here with the neg side, just to block off the light that was coming in from this window over here, because there was quite a lot of natural light spilling in here, and there's also quite a lot of reflection from the snow that was outside during that time. Yes, so this shot for me is one that that needs to have a little bit more time allocated for it, because it's kind of the care shot. And in this super short one, it's a focus around the computer telling her that all of her stuff is sold from that previous shot. Now, looking at the wide shot, because there's a bit of movement, it's always a little bit more difficult to try and keep that same contrast. But it's not impossible, and if you take your time, it can be quite a believable transition, like I did here. And I feel pretty confident that that most people can achieve this. Now you can see straight away here, and this is my only critique, that if you have a look at the contrast that's on the cup on this one, and then you look at the cup on this one, that contrast is gone. But yeah, that's how it is. I hope I'm not repeating myself. After that glass of water, my brain went a little bit blank, but. I think I talked about the outside, that I wanted to keep that outside exposed rather than just being white blobs in the background. So I had to stop the lens down to f5.6. So I was using the Carl Zeiss 21mm. I think I did talk about this. But we're talking a little bit more about the mood in this one. Now, because she is at home and everything is chilled, you've got this warm atmosphere. You believe that she's at home and she's dancing around with happiness in here. Now, the overall mood, it is not high key per se, but it's like you've got enough information throughout the whole entire picture to see what's going on in the scene. And also you get to, that really nice dimensionality of that background outside. I mean, look at that, that's lovely. So I think that's a really fantastic one to have a play with and to try and do your best with achieving overall exposure with the image. And it's not easy, particularly if you've got like lights that aren't super punchy or with a lot of output. The Kino flows, like you see here, they do have quite a lot of output. I mean, that's what's illuminating me right now, opposed to the sunlight that's coming in through my windows. I like to try and keep as much information in the picture as possible, particularly when it comes to windows, because we all know if there was a full-blown summer day out there, it would be super difficult to try and keep that exposure out there, as well as trying to keep a good exposure on the inside. Not impossible, but when you're talking about low budgets, then it gets a lot more difficult technically. So I'll talk a little bit more about the technical aspects here, particularly with the movement and why I decided to go for that movement. Here it was a locked off shot over the shoulder. We can see that with that mood and that general kind of understanding and feel that the focus was going to the laptop. The focus was also showing that we're sort of in an intimate space here. The mood, the contrast and everything like that was everything artistically planned and executed. And that goes with all of a sudden she sold everything. So sold everything, awesome, exclamation, boom. And this is where the movement comes in, and this is where the party starts. And by like giving a little bit of movement in your camera shots like this, I was able to move around ever so slightly, reveal our smiley, happy subject with this one, and just that's sliding across the camera on a slider, boom, slide it across, wrap it around a little bit, it adds that three-dimensionality with the background, with also to our subject here dancing around. We get to see a little bit more of the room, the piano going on here. It gives a lot more lively sensation. It helps that party come out within that picture. If this was a still shot and just here, and she was dancing without any kind of movement, I feel that mood would be potentially lost a little bit. So just by adding that little bit of movement into this shot, could have gotten away with handheld and stepping aside, but I find with handheld sometimes, particularly with my skills with handheld, I get a little bit too much excitement going on, or I've drunk too much coffee and I get a bit too much shake. So I just use the slider just to help me keep it stabilized and to give that subtle movement. I mean, it's not that subtle actually. It's a really big movement. I used potentially the entire slider and then that whole turnaround. So when standing with that slider, I've got one leg already prepared, so I can move the camera over and put my weight on that leg, and then just bring that camera around for that final shot just here. So that's the end of the shot essentially. And that just adds good mood. It adds a good vibe to the shot, and that's something that you kind of have to think about. Like, if it was going to be a sad shot, then maybe there could be a very slow creep in or creep out. You know, this is movements and lights and contrast all play with each other. And this, because it's such a jovial ad, a fun little ad, everything is kind of fun. You know, you've got all the items disappearing, going pop, 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 pop. And then you got these little happy sounds of the logo coming up and going away, and then all of a sudden you got that dance party move. So particularly with the music is very lively and dan, 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 dan. So your camera movement and your lighting and all of this kind of stuff all works together with the general happiness of the film, or of this little spot advert. And all in 15 seconds, 25 seconds with the logo included. You know, you don't have a whole lot to play around with, but if you choose your scenes and you shoot them correctly, you're able to get a good picture. Yeah, I think that's it for this breakdown. Because it's such a short little advert, there's not a whole lot to talk about the techniques. I mean, I can talk about the cameras and the lenses, but I've kind of gone over that in previous ones again. When talking about using a certain f-stop, for example, with the wide shot that I had before, I decided to keep that background a little bit more, so I stopped it down to f5.6. So I was able to keep the detail out there, bring up the overall level in the room, and then you know, treat it like that. And that's sort of within the art directions. Like, what do you want to show in your picture? And that's important to kind of understand beforehand, that you want to be able to have a little bit more of a high key situation. So that wasn't super high key, but it was a really contrasty picture. But you got to see a lot of information there. So there wasn't bits in there that were completely underexposed or just not there kind of thing. Everything was exposed, and that was intentional. If I wanted to have more contrast in there, then I probably would have balanced it to the natural light, and maybe just kind of exposed outside, brought up the lights a little bit so they're not full power, just so we lift the blacks up a little bit, but it just gives a different mood. At the end of the day, it wouldn't have been so happy per se. It probably would have been a little bit more moody, and therefore I think then you could translate that mood into a bit more of a somber tone. So you could have a bit of, like, I don't know, piano playing, like ding, 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 or something like this. I'm just kind of freestyling right now. That different moods require different techniques and require a little bit of thinking through, like, what's the emotion that I want to get out in this picture. Because this spot was happy, warm, and jovial, I was able to add a little contrast in the close-up with that 50mm. Perfect. You don't have to do too much there. Yeah, so I feel like I've exhausted that one. 15 seconds and then talk for, what, 40 minutes? Crazy, huh? How much you can pull out of that, and how much you can kind of go through your head and reflect and try and go, okay, what was the techniques and tricks and stuff like that used? If I'm to go back to my full screen and go for a little bit more of a breakdown on the setup. So there's the Red Epic. It's the camera that I used. To keep it as mobile as possible, I have a V-mount battery on there. There's the 21mm. There's Renita having a look and reviewing the content there. We noticed with the actual bounce lights here, look how soft those shadows are there. So we get a really nice exposure. We're still maintaining a nice contrast, but a good, beautiful wrap. And that's something that I really love with the bouncing light and also these Kino flow lights. Some camera porn. We all love a bit of camera porn. That's the Red Epic with the 21mm legendary Carl Zeiss lens. Here, this was another shot that I tried. This actually, you don't see this shot within this breakdown, but I put a 35mm on it because I wanted to get a little bit closer in with the composition on the shot, and I actually did like that shot as well, but I felt that the 21 kind of worked with that one just because it was a little bit wider. You got to see more of the room, and then I was able to pan that one or slide that one in, push that one in. Yeah, but here we go. We get to see a little bit of the slider. What I'm using there is a pretty simple, it is quite expensive slider. I think it cost me like 500 euros when I was living in Germany, so it's not so cheap. Piece of metal that has some wheels and rolls on a piece of metal. And then I've got a fluid head on there. That's where the camera sits on, and that's what I essentially just pushed in and out of the scene. And that's it from the behind the scenes of that one. You can actually go to my website, heapsgood.no, hit on the blog site, and then you can see some more of my blog bits. Actually, that one didn't update properly. There we go. And that is the latest post that I have on there right now as of the 15th of the 3rd, 2021. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. I've got on my little notepad of great information here, I had a polls like voting thing for what you guys would like to see me produce on this channel. I noticed that Sean had voted, and he wanted to see some things like gear stuff. Wanted to see some more, tips and tricks. I know after talking with Joa on the phone, or actually writing with him on the phone, that there is a desire for lighting techniques. How did I light this scene? How did I do this? And all this kind of stuff. That's what I was going through a little bit more in this breakdown. And I wanted to take a little bit more in depth of different techniques. So as you saw with bouncing the light and some of the modifiers, and they're pretty simple modifiers. I mean, okay, the lights are one thing, but the technique is quite simple. You can bounce it, you can diffuse it, you can do lots of things. You can neg it, whatever. So that was one thing that I was trying to implement within this breakdown. But I was toying with the idea of doing a lighting video breakdown. And that is going to require a model or two. And I have got some time potentially next week to be able to start to plan that one. Now, because of the equipment that I have, I'm only going to use the equipment that I have. I can't hire anything just yet. I was actually thinking about buying an ARRI 1000 watt tungsten Fresnel. That comes at a later point when I've got some money after I paid all my bills, etc. But I do have some great lights that I can use to show different examples of lighting and some lighting tips and tricks and techniques. And that comes down to all things like going down to your local hardware store and picking up some styrofoam, styropor, or whatever you want to call it, insulation, just some white stuff, spray it with some black paint, cost you like max, I don't know, if you're in Europe, 12 euros, maybe 15 euros. That's all you have to spend. I got 2 of these pieces of foam. I think they were around €5, €6 each, and then the paint was also like €7 if you had to convert Corona to euros. And if we're talking about dollars, you know, it's probably like 10, 15 bucks. Yeah, and that's just one way to like think a little bit deeper in the lighting technique and how you're to get that thought process in action of like, do I add a little bit more contrast here? Do I reflect? What do I do in this situation? And it's kind of like a little bit by feel. And for me, I'm trying to work my way into a bit more naturalistic style of lighting. So looking at the situation around me and going, okay, well, there's light coming through that window. Of course, there's not going to be a light from the dark end of the room shining somewhere else, unless that's, of course, intentional. And that also is the argument. If it's intentional, it's intentional, and that's what you want to do. Yeah. I'm going to look at starting to build a small video, kind of like what I did with the lens test video, but more with lighting. So what happens if I turn off this light? The scene is completely different. I don't have a key light. I have some fill coming in, and that's just the natural ambient coming in the room. But if I turn this light back on, there we are. You know, and that's just one example of just a major difference one light can do to a picture. And I think it's important that you understand that this is part of the development of filmmaking and photography. Now these tips can be brought over to photography. Say for example, you've got a little light like this, simple light, and you wanted to light your subject. I mean, I'm going to go through that, I think. I'm going to have a good experimental day. I'm going to take out the Epic. I'm going to put the Epic down on a tripod. I'm going to get a lovely looking subject, put her on a chair, or him on a chair, and get some different lighting techniques, and then start to show a bit of mood, what you do to diffuse a situation, if you want a certain color in the background, if you want a black curtain, etc., etc. And then how you turn your lights, whether you're using fluoros, whether you're using LEDs, how you diffuse them, how you bounce them, all that kind of stuff. We can go through some techniques there, and I think that'll be kind of fun for a little breakdown, and also a push with my ability to be able to teach and show and provide. That being said, I think that we are now done with this breakdown. So thank you so very much for watching. Hope you enjoy. Give me some feedback. Let me know a little bit more on what you would like to hear and how you would like to see it. I'm going to try and upgrade my skills by producing some maybe potentially tutorials, but not so. I didn't really want to go so much into tutorial videos, but I can give some live practice videos. So I'll get a situation where I go, okay, well look, here we are right now. We're going to light this camera. How do we want to light this camera? Well, we want to make it look cool. So we give it our key light, we give it our fill. So if I get this little pad, then okay, my live breakdown kind of sucks. But we can kind of do, you know, backlight, how we get some, if I can get this going on here without it being too long in the tooth. Yeah, so you can do things like this, how you separate your camera subject from the background. So say, for example, because I'm wearing a black top here, we're instantly losing that black background there. But if we put in a backlight, for example, we start to see a little bit more of this definition. And that depends on where you place that light and where you get those details. And also, say if you place the light above, then you get different sensations going on there. And a little bit of movement as well in your light also creates interest and all this kind of stuff as well. So now I want to go over and start loading this little camera up with film and begin my film. Okay, that's it from me now, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hooroo.